So this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about reading and phonics, particularly with foundation stage in mind. Last year when we held these workshops, I did a presentation across the board, but we felt that it would be better if we split it into the different year groups this year because they work quite differently and the stages that they're at in their learning is quite different. So you'll see from my presentation, I hope everybody can see that we follow the Little Wandle's Letters and Sounds revised programme for phonics, and that really does tie in with our reading programme as well. So I'm just going to work through this presentation, and then at the end I'm going to share with you a couple of places you can go for some really useful resources, and then there'll be time for questions hopefully. I'm sorry, it is a lot of probably listening to me and me doing a lot of talking, so apologies for that. But hopefully it'll be really useful and you'll understand a little bit more about how phonics and reading is taught and delivered to the children at Westcott. Move my screen over. Here we go. So I don't think it'll be any surprise to you that a love of reading is the biggest indicator of future academic success. There's lots of research that's gone into the importance for reading, and as an infant school we really know the foundations that we're setting for reading are so important for your child's future success within school and their future life. So we place an incredibly big portion of our time and focus on reading, and one of the elements or strategies for reading is phonics. So I'm going to talk about them in a bit more detail. And I bet that you've done lots of reading today. If you think about emails, letters, on your phone, tablets, computers, instructions. So reading plays a huge, important part of our lives, and that's why it's so important. Particular focus on phonics, it's very different perhaps from the way that you learn to read in school. As I did when I was in school, it's much less about the alphabet, but much more about the sounds the letters make. And that's what we call phonics. We've chosen the Little Wandle Letters and Sounds revised programme as of the other trust schools. And we started this programme last year, so we're in our second year now, and I feel like we really understand it much more now. And we could really see the impact it had on our children last year. A really positive impact. So we're really pleased that we've adopted this scheme. There's lots of support and resources out there, and they're developing it all the time and improving it. So that's really good as well. And it is the focus for teaching early reading and spelling eventually when your children get a bit further along. So phonics is making the connections between the sounds of our spoken words, which we call a phoneme, and the letters that are used to write them down, which we call a grapheme. I'll come on to terminology later, but I've mentioned that because that's really important. So how do we teach phonics? It's daily short sessions. We've already started. Some of your children will already be sharing with you the sounds that they've learned, and they will have come home with a sheet that details some of the sounds they learn. And there's a really specific order for teaching the sounds, which I'll share with you later. We have to really think about the pronunciation of the sounds. Again, I'm going to show you a resource for that later that will really help you out, particularly I think with some of the more trickier sounds. And then it's that repeated practice. And our phonics lessons follow the same structure each day. So it is the children are used to the pattern and the rhythm, and they know what's expected. And they actually really like that because they don't have to think, they just know that what's coming next. There's nothing unexpected. We have lots of lovely flashcards that we can use with the children. And like I say, the phonemes are taught in a specific order, and the order is in place so they can start building words from quite early on, start blending. There's sometimes a little picture with the words. That's to help the children to remember that phoneme, and eventually they won't need that picture, but to start with, that really does help them out. And I'll show you something later where you can see what that represents. Quite early on, you'll see quite soon your children will be learning digraphs. A digraph is two letters that make one sound. You get consonant ones and vowel digraphs. And we do teach that vocabulary to the children. They'll know what a digraph is when they start learning them. And there's a few examples on here. You can see the flashcards that we would use with the children. Here's some vowel digraphs. Again, your children, as they progress through the phonics, will start to learn these. And there's a little caption when we get to the vowel digraphs to help them learn it and remember it. So soap that goat and zoom to the moon. They try and choose ones that are a bit engaging. Within this section as well, we also have a couple of trigraphs, which are 3 letters, one sound like IGH or AIR, and your children will learn those as well. During the phonics lesson, we also do some blending of words, particularly as the more sounds they learn, and we use sound buttons that you'll see under the word map there and nip that helps us to identify each phoneme, and then it helps them to read the word. And it works the same with digraphs, although we have a dash or a line that represents the digraph. So that's still showing the children that that's 2 letters but 1 sound. Another part of our phonics session is teaching the tricky words. So we call these words tricky words because although there's clues in there and sounds the children will recognise that will help them to read that word. For example, 2, they'll hear the initial sound, but the other part of the word is not always so simple. So we teach these as tricky words, and they just have to learn the whole word. So it's lots of repetition and practice, but building up that word bank really helps them with their reading. I'm just going to pause slightly because I heard a beep and I think someone's trying to get in and I can't see my screen anymore. So I'm just going to flash over. Here we go. Just omit those. Fantastic. If you've just joined us, I have recorded the start of this meeting, so you'll be able to catch up. I'm just sharing about a phonics session and what that looks like. We've just looked at some tricky words that would form part of it. And when we start to introduce more sounds, we start to blend with the children. And I'll show you later, but there is a really good video about your children at home blend on the Little Wandles webpage, but I'll share that with you in a moment. Sometimes the children can blend really quickly and hear the words that they're sounding out, but sometimes it does take them a bit longer. And like most things, it is repetition and practice and that revisiting the sounds that they've done and going over it. So your children will get there, but they all learn at different rates, and some will be able to hear the words really easily and some won't. Don't be dismayed if they're not getting there, they will. And you can always ask your child's teacher for ways to help at home. And like I say, I'll share with you the web page for Little Wonder, which is really a really good place to look at. And you'll see the resources on there that might be able to support and help you. There we go. Terminology. So I said terminology is really important. We do use the correct terminology with children, and they love it. It's a bit like they like learning all the dinosaur names. They love learning this vocabulary. So we use phonemes. Phonemes, what you can hear. It's the sound you can hear, whether it's a single letter or a digraph or a trigraph, but that's the phoneme. It's what you can hear. The grapheme are the letters that you can see. So that's the letter that represents that sound. A digraph is 2 letters, 1 sound, and you get consonant digraphs, vowel digraphs. A trigraph is 3 letters that make 1 sound. Then we have split vowel digraphs, which are split by consonant. So in words like make, you've got the A sound split by the K, or I can never think of ones on the spot. Take, similar, split by the K, but they're split vowel digraphs. You'll be amazed when your child comes home when they've learned these and they'll say to you, oh, that's got a split vowel digraph in it. That's probably more year 1, but your children move on to them, and I think it's nice for you to know where they're heading. Blending is when we said the sounds out loud and we blend the word together. So for example, if I sounded out cat, I then blend it together to say the word cat. Segmenting is splitting up the sounds to sound it out. So that's the terminology. And again, you can find all this on the website, which I will show you. So like I said earlier, we have a specific order that we teach the sounds in, and we usually teach 4 new sounds a week and then have a review lesson on a Friday. And these grapheme information sheets are available, they are on our website, but again, I'll show you the Little Wandle website, which also has them. They're really useful because it gives you the pronunciation phrase and also the formation, because we do work on the children being able to write the letter at the same time as learning the sound. And then gradually we'll work our way through the whole Little Wandles programme until your child can read fluently. That ideally, the Little Wandle scheme is to work with them through foundation stage and year 1, and the aim is by the end of year 1 that they have completed the whole programme and they're reading fluently. That doesn't work for every child. It's like everything, isn't it? Everybody's different, but that is the aim. And last year, most of our foundation stage children, bar a couple who had additional needs, were able to do that, and they're well on their way now through the year 1 part of the Little Wandle programme. Again, this is all available on our website, so you can see what your children will be doing within each term and where they're heading when they get to year 1. So how do we make learning stick? So like I've said a lot, we do lots of repetition, repeating. We don't use loads and loads of flashy resources. We have our flashcards because we don't want that cognitive load of each lesson to overwhelm your children. We want them to focus on the learning. But there are specific resources that we use, and every class across the school all uses the same resources, so that your children moving from foundation stage into year 1 don't have to learn a new set of visuals or new set of phrases or songs or dances. It's all the same and it is consistent across the school. The staff, all staff, including our support staff, do the letters and sounds training, which enables them to be able to support the children and help them out. And we also try and engage with yourselves and share with yourselves what we're doing, so that you can, when you're reading with your children or you're looking at the phonics sheet that we send home, that you can help revisit that in the evening, because we revisit it throughout the day, but sometimes that's lost in the evenings and weekends, and particularly school holidays. So we do try to encourage support from home as well. So that's the phonics. I realise I've rattled through that, and I'm going to talk about reading now. Like I say, there's opportunities for questions at the end, but if you'd rather email, that's fine as well. I know not everybody's comfortable speaking in a group setting. So with reading, we still follow the Little Wandles Letters and Sounds programme with our reading. We have, the children they will have a reading practice session 3 times a week with a trained adult, so that's TA or teacher or teaching assistant, and they'll have that in small groups. The foundation stage children will start that after half term, because we try to teach them some of the sounds first in this autumn first, before then they've got books with words in. They may receive books, non-worded books this half term to get them used to having a book, turning the pages, telling a story, or looking at the pictures, predicting what might happen. But the worded books will start after half term. So we use an assessment to match your child to the right level of book, and we will do that just before half term, ready for after half term. We do that every 6 weeks to check the progress. Any children that are struggling with a particular sound, or maybe haven't quite met all of the part of the assessment, we then do keep up sessions with them. It's not something necessarily we'd share with you, because sometimes it might just be one sound or one word they're getting stuck on. If we were feeling like we're having to do lots of keep up, or they were really finding it difficult to access the phonics, then we'd absolutely talk to you. But the odd keep up session that just goes for, you know, we do apply that for all children. So it's really important that the children is reading a book at the right level. So that's why we do our assessments. They should know all the sounds and tricky words in their phonics book really well. And because they've read it 3 times in school with an adult, by the time they come home, that should be the case. If you feel like it isn't, that's when you'd need to speak to your child's teacher. I'll come on to what those sessions look like on the next slide. They should be able to read many of the words by silent blending in their head, but I think for your children at the start of their reading, it's probably easier for them to read the word if they're doing it out loud, so they can hear what they're saying. And the right book should mean they only need to stop and sound out about 5% of the words by the time they bring the book home, but they should be able to do this on their own. So again, if your child's finding that difficult, then that's when you chat to the teacher. But we'll have read it 3 times in school, so if we've got any concerns or worries, we'll have already picked up on that. So the 3 sessions, they have a different focus for each session. So the first session is all about decoding. We go through the words and sounds in the book that the children might find difficult, and any new vocabulary that they may have come across. The second read is about prosody, which is your intonation or your expression when you're reading. And the purpose of that is to help them understand that we're reading for meaning. And the third read is comprehension. So each read has a different focus, but we always go through the same structure of practicing any sounds that we need for the book, any words, we read the book, and then we might do the prosody or comprehension. What I would say is for foundation stage children is we probably focus less on prosody at the start. It's more about decoding, familiarisation with books, and also the books you'll see that come home, they don't have enough content in them to really practice prosody. But as they move further through the scheme and there's simple sentences within the book or more words, then you can absolutely practice that expression. And the children love doing it. They love putting on their David Attenborough voice, or, you know, their interesting voice. And it's really important that we celebrate their success at home. So by the time they bring that book home, it's all about celebrating them, allowing them to read it, because we have other books that come home for you to practice wider reading. So this is about reading at home, because the reading practice sessions happen in school, and then this is sort of your part of reading journey. So the most important thing that you can do is read with your child. The aim is for your child to read every day at home, but I've got young children. It's not always possible with their clubs, their commitments, family life, having dinner. So I always say at least 3 times a week home. That's your aim. If you can read every day, fantastic, but you just might not be able to achieve that every week. But at least 3 times a week. Regular reading at home has a huge impact on their progresses in school, not just for their reading, but for their other subjects and their writing. So it helps them to understand words and sentences, develops their vocabulary, develops their listening and comprehension skills. So the book's going home, as well as your reading practice book that will come home, your child will also bring home a library book, which is of their choice. So we have a huge range of books in our library, non-fiction and fiction, that your child can choose from. And that's something probably to share together. And then they will have home readers. Now, our home readers are banded, so they are staged. But there may be sounds and words in them that your children haven't covered in phonics, so they're still going to need some support with those home readers. But it's just to give them more variety of reading, and also because they've read their reading practice book 3 times in school, it's nice for you to have other books to read with them, and they get changed regularly throughout the week, or as much as the children need to. So again, this just repeats some of the things I've said before. So your reading practice book, your child should be able to read their book without your help. If they can't read a word, read it to them. Don't, encourage them to use their phonics, but if they can't, then support them. and talk about the book and celebrate their success. And this is just a picture of some of the titles that we have across our scheme. There's a real nice range of books. They're really lovely, actually, both fiction and non-fiction. So it's good for all of the children and all their interests. But like I say, they have those other books that they make their own choice of their home reading library book, so they can develop their own reading interests. And it's just all about developing that pleasure for reading. It's really important that you pronounce the sounds correctly at home if you're supporting your child. And I'll show you in a minute, but these videos are available on the Little Wandles webpage, and you can see a video of the children pronouncing the sound. So it's always a good place to go and have a little check if you're not sure what the sound is. And then the sharing book, this is for you to read, so they're like the library book. They might want to read bits of it. Some of the books are more simpler than others, but this is a book just to enjoy together. You can talk about new and exciting language, encourage them to use new vocabulary. You can find different words to describe things. It's just meant to be developing their pleasure of reading and their want to read. And then just to end with a quote, I love a good quote. So that's just a nice quote to finish with. Then I'm just going to share with you. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Move my screens around just to share with you the web page, because I think that's a really good place to visit. And this is where you'll see I'm out of practice. I specifically practiced this earlier. Let's end that. That might help me. Here we go. It's because I was clicking the wrong button. So the Little Wandles Letters and Sounds webpage. Would someone mind just unmuting and letting me know that you can see that webpage? Yeah. Fantastic, thank you, whoever that was. So it's just Little Wandles Letters and Sounds.org.uk, and if you go to the section for parents, that's where the videos are of the children pronouncing the sounds, and you'll see there's even some phase 5 sounds on there for year 1, so for next year. You'll see the sounds that the children will be learning as you scroll down, so that's a really good place to go to. And then if you go to How We Teach, there's some quick guides there. So if you're not sure about tricky words or alien words, which will come up next year more with the year 1 phonics screening check, about blending, they're really useful videos, and they're quite short, so they're not long videos to watch. And then there's a little video about the books coming home if you're not quite sure what the books are about the reading practice book, and we call them home readers, but they call them sharing books on Little Wandle. So that's a really good place to go to. And then there's also our website. There's a phonics and reading page within our curriculum section, and there's our reading curriculum there. There's a little bit about phonics, but you've also got those progression summaries, the overviews on there. And then when we get to it, phonics screening is for year 1, but it's on there ready for your children next year. But there's lots of information on there that you can also go to. But I would say the Little Wandles Letters and Sounds, their main page is the best place to go. And like I say, they update it and add things all the time, so really useful. So I've spoken far too much now, and it's really odd speaking to a screen non-stop. Has anybody got any questions? Stunned silence. I'll take that as a positive. Like I say, if you don't want to ask here, but you want to know more, either the best place to go to is your child's class teacher, or you can email in to me and I'm happy to answer anything. Or if you want something, you can't find it, then just let me know and I'll try and email it out to you. I'll just check once more. Are we sure no one's got any questions?
No questions, just to say that was really helpful. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm glad it was useful. And also feedback about anything that I've not covered that would have been useful to know. Because it's hard to fit everything in. There's so much to tell you within 30 minutes. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming. And like I say, if you think of something later or next week, then please do ask.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.